anyone has any information on the shooting, can they go to sleep, please? 3706.
Yes, ma'am. Per a passerby citizen, the 7-Eleven on Belvedere is supposed to be a bunch of individuals in there trashing and looting. We got some officers going that way, but we may need some more.
6 en route.
650 en route.
Right.
Charlie, Tony, myself, and 30 will be en route to that location.
So right now we're listening to live Baltimore scanner radio. And
Shoes up there, receive on the WhatsApp, please.
Listening to it, seeing how things unfold.
Charlie 34 lateral. Go ahead. I'm not sure for unit number 4344, Aquila. Neighborhood services coming down there to block that intersection off for you, and you can go back in service. 10-4. 10-4, copy. 32 Belvedere. 1032 Belvedere for 7-Eleven, 1032 or 2034. Yeah, 10-4, I understand. I just want to let you know what we're trying to do.
They were just talking about
Well, I said it to your unit. Has anyone gotten any information on the shooting yet?
I thought it was 7-Eleven.
perhaps I haven't picked up that. I picked up shooter. They're talking about a shooter.
Right. I thought I know the loot. They did the looting call.
Left on Fulton and a left on Petsy. Then come on down and you'll see the lot on the right hand side where all the officers are staging. That looks like the best route at this time with the proper lighting and quickness of travel, if you know what I mean. Thank you.
I'm not quite sure. I do know what you mean, sir.
Can you give me a head count approximately what I'm dealing with at North and Petsy? Lincoln and Sergeant Jackson. If you want to go ahead and take them to the window, we'll catch back over the crowd. 10-4. I'll go to the weapon. Y'all got it.
I wish I could see inside these people's heads and try to figure out what they were aiming for with all this ridiculousness. The riots, the looting.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's happened even when people, when the Red Sox, I think it was the 2004 World Series.
Hold on.
Those people, they were happy, in essence, and they friggin' tear up the city because their team won.
I know. I don't. It's a strange thing, you piss off enough people and they're going to riot on you, and if enough people are in a great mood, they do the same thing.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand. And who started it? Was there one person who was started breaking things and then more people did it?
It doesn't always have to start with one person.
I guess
or a group of people conspiring to start. You have a group of 5 guys being like, let's start some shit.
Right, yeah.
It's hard to know because, if you're not there, you're not there.
That's true, yeah. But I can't imagine, especially over a sports team. I mean, I know there's a lot of sports fans out there.
No, of course. But in the end, it's just a kid's game. Yeah. Which actually reminds me, there's an article that I saw today that was from the vice president of the Orioles, the Baltimore Orioles.
Mm-hmm. Some
sportscaster had mentioned, I guess maybe made some sort of comment about, a couple of games getting canceled because of all of this, and saying how, this, I don't know exactly what was said, but basically the VP then came back with a statement saying, look, man, on one angle, I do agree with you that this X, Y, and Z is correct, but, in the real scheme of things, the real situation is totally different. I feel like the way he writes it is so much better. Hold on. It's up. All right, so this was reported on the antimedia.com, I believe. April 28, 2015. Basically, I set you up for the story, so I'm just going to get to the quote. He says, Brett, which is the name of the sportscaster, speaking only for myself, I agree with your point that the principle of peace, nonviolent protest, and the observance of the rule of law is of utmost importance in any society. MLK, Gandhi, Mandela, and other great opposition leaders throughout history have always preached this precept. Further, it is critical that in any democracy, investigation must be completed and due process must be honored before any government or police members are judged responsible. That said, my greater source of personal concern, outrage, and sympathy beyond this particular case is focused neither upon one night's property damage nor upon the acts, but is focused rather upon the past 4-decade period during which an American political elite have shipped middle-class and working-class jobs away from Baltimore and cities and towns around the U.S. to third-world dictatorships like China and others, plunged tens of millions of good, hard-working Americans into economic devastation, and then followed that action around the nation by diminishing every American's civil rights protections in order to control an unfairly impoverished population living under an ever-declining standard of living and suffering at the butt end of an ever more militarized and aggressive surveillance state. The innocent working families of all backgrounds whose lives and dreams have been cut short by excessive violence, surveillance, and other abuses of the Bill of Rights by government pay the true price, an ultimate price, and one that far exceeds the importance of any kids game played tonight or ever at Camden Yards. We need to keep in mind people are suffering and dying around the U.S., and while we are thankful no one was injured at Camden Yards, there is a far bigger picture for poor Americans in Baltimore everywhere who don't have jobs and are losing economic and civil legal rights. And this makes inconvenience to a ball game irrelevant in light of needless suffering government is inflicting upon ordinary Americans. So I sort of butchered it, but that's the gist of it.
Interesting.
And I think that hits the point, man. Like, some guy's going to harp about a couple of games getting canceled. That's really what your go-to is for this?
right, yeah.
Shit is hitting the fucking fan, and you want to say, oh, a couple of games aren't going to get played.
Right.
It's like that's going to be your...
Definitely, yeah.
I don't know. It seems, and I think, and this is the vice president of the Orioles. This is the baseball team's VP saying, listen, guy, I get what you're saying on one point of it, like I said, but really, let's critically think about this.
Right, and that's the last thing you should be worrying about if the city's like in flames and people are getting killed. And
we've heard about active shooter when we were listening to the scanner earlier. We just heard something about a B&E going on the 23rd floor of a building. I mean, shit's really going down, and like, what kind of statement are these people trying to make?
Well, see, who was it that got shot? I'm not even sure which one.
You mean the whole thing?
Well, they're specifically writing about what's his name? I just saw it. What's his name?
The guy from this particular case?
Right.
His name is Freddie Gray.
Freddie Gray. Okay, yeah, that's right. Okay, so
do you know what happened? He didn't get shot.
He didn't get shot. Okay.
No. So from what I understand, he was in a particular area of this city. He was known as who he was, which he had a rap sheet, which we've all seen on the internet, which to me doesn't really hold much water. And if that argument comes up later or whatever, if we're talking about it, I'll get into it, I guess. But really, so what happened, from what I've heard, from what I've read from multiple sources, is that basically he was in an area. The cops saw him, decided to, and this is quoting a website that I read, make contact. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, so this is them making contact with the person that they know of or whatever. But anyway, so they decide to make contact with him. What happens, I don't know exactly, but eventually it's found that he has a switchblade. Maybe they frisked him. They found it. But from what was reported, it was all within legal limitations on the blade size, handle size, mm-hmm. and it's legal to have a switchblade and that sort of thing. So it wasn't, from what I read, an illegal knife. Mm-hmm. But he had it on him, which is, I guess, for them perhaps just cause or probable cause enough to detain him officially, I guess. Whether he resisted, I don't know. I wasn't there, and the reports don't necessarily get into the full details of it. Maybe I'm sure there are police reporters out there, freedom of information, whatever. But so either way, he eventually gets to the point. The situation escalates to the point where he's now getting beat by 6 officers. It was 6-on-1 to begin with, making contact, I guess. Maybe not. Maybe officers backed up later on. Mm-hmm. But either way, in the end, there were 6 units or 3 units of 2. I guess I don't know how it works. But they beat him so severely that by the end, his spinal cord his C-spine was severed, and only about, I think the fraction was about an eighth of it was intact.
Wow.
They virtually decapitated him without actually taking off his head. You can be considered decapitated with your neck still intact. I'm sure you know that.
Right. Well,
internal decapitation,
right.
or whatever the actual medical term is. So, like, I mean, they basically did that to him. And, you know, yes, he does have a rap sheet. Yes, a lot of it was narcotics possession and dealing or distribution.
Mm-hmm.
One was at least one was a burglary that I saw, another possession of stolen items, something like that. You know, so look, the guy wasn't a saint, but none of us are, and maybe none of us have a rap sheet a mile long. But I don't think that, I don't know. I just don't think that. And again, I don't know if any of the officers in that initial contact were injured. I don't know how badly he fought back. If he stabbed anybody, if he cut anyone, I have no idea. But
I didn't read into it because
well, I'm not quite done.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
3 times he requested medical attention, and they ignored him. He died in their custody in a cell, or I believe were in the car. There was also a stipulation that they didn't buckle him in the cruiser when they were transporting him from the scene to the station. But, I mean, that's going to be one of those things where, like, oh, and they also, you know, we have to cut, if we're going to go after these guys, we're going to go after every little infraction. But it's kind of like just a showy thing. Like, I didn't buckle him in. Dude, if you're going to...
So wait, he was still alive in the car with his spine snapped? I don't understand how.
Well, no, his spine wasn't totally, I mean, it was mostly severed, but it was still somewhat intact. He was paralyzed from the waist down. When they tried to pick him up, he couldn't stand. So, but I guess, I don't know, man, there was still function enough, either requested or someone, there were 3 requests made. I'm not saying who requested.
Right,
I'm not saying he
I actually didn't even read the story, but go ahead.
I did, and I'm still foggy on some things. But either way, there were 3 opportunities for them to call 911 or to bring him to a hospital, and it didn't happen. He died in their custody. And it's all been documented. Even the commissioner, the local police commissioner, said that they failed to respond 3 times to medical aid to provide or somehow provide medical aid. So that's as far as I understand, that's the whole story. That's why there's justice for Eddie Gray, because
right.
Why was this necessary? Why did it play out like this? And why, when you know that you severely beat a man and he is literally or clearly not functioning like a normal person should, even after getting beat, you can still stand up and walk around, and you know you're probably more calmed down even because you just had the adrenaline flush through you, and now you've been beaten, but you can still communicate. Like this guy, I don't know exactly his state after they were done with him, but clearly it was enough to result in his death.
Wow. Well, what I will say about that is, if all of that is true, then that is clearly wrong, and then they absolutely should be punished for it. However, I haven't seen any videos, and I actually haven't read anything because there is so many. You see so many police videos now. And the one that I did see there was no arguing it was, I don't remember what state it was in, but the guy was running away and the cop shot him like 4 times in the back. Did you see that one?
I honestly, and I know maybe it sounds closed-minded, but I try not to watch videos of actual death because I can already infer, I already know what gunshots look like from my earlier days looking at ogrish.com, steakandcheese.com, things that you can't unsee.
Yeah.
You know,
well, actually, it's not a gory video at all.
No, even then, just knowing that the bullets are penetrating, doing their damage, and he's dying because of those wounds. It unsettles me. And I'm not trying to be a pussy.
No,
but it's just something I don't necessarily need to watch. Like I think there was video even of Mike Brown getting taken out or something like that.
Really?
I had no interest. I read the story.
But that video in particular, it's very clear. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. The guy's running away unarmed, and then the cop pulls out his pistol and shoots him, I think, like 4 or 5 times in the back when he's running away, and he did die. Right. So what I will say about that is a scenario like that where I'm seeing it and there's no unclarity. That's obviously wrong.
To be fair, and I do like to and do try to be fair, that video in a sense is sort of out of context because again, maybe we're not, that was maybe just a clip of the whole movie, the whole video. That was was it body cam footage or
no somebody else.
Oh, it was like cell phone surveillance or witness. Okay. So it's like, it could be out of context. We don't know what happened right before the video started.
No, that's true, right?
We don't know, it's like, look, the way the police have to handle situations, I mean, they do have to be prepared for people who are going to try and kill them. I just feel like the way they're being trained right now has them prepared to protect their own lives with deadly force in situations where I think they used to be trained to use non-lethal ways. Like, for example, like in a sense, in a metaphorical, colorful sense, don't bring a gun to a knife fight. So if this Eddie Gray had a knife and even though it was a regulation, whatever, they were going to use that against him to book him or to take him in. You know, okay, so bring the level of force up to a level that can defeat a knife. I mean, they have batons. I thought they were standard issue. Maybe every cop doesn't carry the baton anymore.
They do. It's a collapsible one.
Yeah,
So.
no, right, but it's the same idea,
Yeah.
and it's going to be enough if you use it correctly. I would imagine, you know, that it should be able to hit it. They have tasers. They have non-lethal ways, and of course, tasers can be lethal because someone actually just died. I forget his name exactly, but he was in a holding cell. The officer is on the camera of the cell, shown tasing this gentleman for a full minute. He dies. He was partially disabled, mentally disabled, deaf, or partially deaf. And so he wasn't responding correctly, or like maybe freaking out or something. And they are literally trained that if you feel like you're in any way, you stop that. You do what you have to do to protect yours. And that is what we were taught when we went to EMT school, was, you know, cover and conceal it first. You're never on scene and invisible. You always take care of you, and you take care of your partner, and then you save your patient.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that is ingrained, and that's how these establishments work, and that's okay, because it keeps those guys coming home to their families. And it's the same sort of mentality in the military service where, you know, you take care of yourself and your unit, you know, and then you do what you can if you have, you know, humanitarian goals, or, you know, you do your third or tertiary.
Right.
Your mission.
What I would like to say in response to the bring a gun to a knife fight.
And you do have background in not mixed. I'm sorry, but in
martial arts.
In martial arts.
Yep, I do.
Combatives.
What I will say about that is, if somebody pulls a knife on you, they have brought it up to lethal force.
Right. Well, but not necessarily as lethal as a bullet to the head or the spine.
No, but are you really going to take that chance?
No.
Are you going to say, okay, well, let me take the time to be even because I don't want to be unfair? In my opinion, if you pull a knife on anybody, that's it. It's fair game.
Isn't fairness kind of the basis, or at least part of the justice system? And the police, I mean, are the law enforcement of the justice system. So that doesn't seem fair. I mean, it seems like if you were trained in your sense, like you were in combatives, you were literally, by your due, you were trained to think in the moment and think clearly in that moment. And so, you know, part of that training then should be like, okay, well, I'm in the moment, my adrenaline's pumping, but I'm clear-minded, I know the situation, I got a full idea of what's happening, and I know that he's got a knife, he doesn't seem to have any weapon. If he had something more powerful, he would have pulled it, you know, but that's what he has. So, you know, it's like, you know, again, if he had a brick in his pocket, a knife, he's going to go for the knife. That is his trump card, in his opinion. So then you use the tactics. And besides that, there were at the time 6 units on him at the time, or 6 officers there.
Right.
So he's outnumbered.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to say.
The thing about a knife, the combatives training that I did, a lot of it was knife.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we did drills, and we also saw some videos that were passed along, you know, through phones and stuff like that.
Of actual fights?
No, of training scenarios where police officers would be, you know, they'd be like walking in a room, for instance, and a guy with a knife, a fake knife, would be placed at a certain distance, and they would see, okay, now the guy starts charging at you. How quick can you draw your gun?
Right.
21 feet was the furthest it needed to be. For the average officer. Now, some people train, they practice accessing their weapon, they're very quick.
The individual, right.
But 21 feet, and they still had to veer off when they pulled out their pistol. Any closer than that, they were dead.
Yeah.
And I saw these videos. These guys, before they're sitting there trying to grab their gun, they're right on top of them, 8 or 9 stabs. And you don't need training to know how to use a knife. So, in my opinion, I think it is absolutely fine to shoot somebody if they pull a knife on you, because they've brought it to that level. If they puncture an organ, if they hit you in the face with a knife, whatever.
No, it's no matter, even if it's a grazing, you know, hit, it's still going to do some damage.
Right. You know, but I do understand what you're saying. You know, where people are using excessive force, and we hear that term all the time, excessive force. 6 guys on one, yeah, it does seem a little extreme. However, it takes less than a second to somebody's throat. Right. If you're pulling, and I don't know if he pulled the knife, I don't know the story.
Yeah, we don't know exactly how it was discovered, right?
But if he did draw his blade and display aggression, now put yourself in the officer's shoes.
Yeah. Now
you have a man who you know has a history of violence or at least crime, and now he's pulled a knife on a police officer, which takes a certain degree of either balls or stupidity.
Agreed.
You know, in my opinion.
And there's intent there. I mean, it's clearly, you don't pull a knife on accident.
Absolutely. So
if that's how it happened.
Right. We weren't, and even how it's reported, we weren't there.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, no, that's, I mean, you know, I have my license to carry. I carry a firearm, and if somebody pulls a knife on me, my gun is coming out instantly.
Well, and you'd hope it mostly just be a deterrent.
I would hope, but I mean, if they come at me in any way, even if they're trying to cut my hand,
right.
We don't know what that next move is going to be. The drills that I did showed how quick shit hits the fan, even how fast an untrained person can hit you with a throat shot.
Well, that was going to be another point I was going to make is also, I mean, you have to understand this kid. I mean, yeah, he's a Baltimore native. He grew up maybe on the streets. I'm not sure. I don't know Eddie Gray's story personally, or his personal story, but whatever. But he's not a trained individual. He's not like he knows really how to use the knife. He knows what the pointy end is and what the slicey end is.
Right.
But it's not like he's got any level of training compared to what a cadet has to go through.
That's true.
Police academy.
But again, you can't. It's not a.
The real world is not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's not the big uncle playing with his 6-year-old nephew and being like, all right, I'm not going to hit him as hard. I'm going to make it fair.
No,
it's a totally different scenario.
Animal trying to kill each other.
And you don't know what else they have on you. You might not necessarily draw your most powerful weapon first. In fact, some of the this was the opinion of one of the people I used to train with. There was this whole discussion of spring-loaded knives versus manual knives. And, of course, most people right off the bat, spring-loaded, it's quick, you don't have to do any type of hand motion. But the other guy I trained with brought up an interesting point of, if it's manual, I can control the sound. You don't want to pull it out and go, hi-ya, let's go.
Yeah.
You want it to be a surprise. So you don't know what else this guy has in his pocket. I carry a gun every day and nobody ever notices unless they're my friends like you and they already know and they already look for it.
Yep.
They have no idea. And that's a gun. This is a full-size gun.
Oh, no, I know.
There could be the most random thing. And and you're a police officer, so you're in one of the most dangerous jobs. Your mindset is in that defensive mode.
Yeah.
And, but I do recognize that, of course, they abuse their power. And of course, there are very unfortunate situations where somebody gets beat up or even killed that absolutely didn't deserve it. And whatever, either the officer or officers genuinely got afraid, or they just had that kind of hothead personality, and
preconceived notions
and abuse their power. But I've said it once and I'll say it again that any form of stepping out of their bounds or breaking the rules, that takes an individual to do that.
No, and I absolutely agree, and that's why I was saying earlier how it's hard for me. It's not hard for me necessarily to defend my point of view because, well, I think anyone who has a point of view can say that about their point of view. But it's sort of hard to attack it in any sense just because I don't disregard the police. I don't hate them whatsoever. In fact, I understand that there is most likely, until we reach some sort of utopia, which is, whatever, question marks.
That's true.
Unless we can reach that sort of thing, there's probably going to be some sort of law, and there's probably going to be a need for some sort of law enforcement. Look, no matter what, there are individuals in our society who will do harm for harm's sake. Psychopaths, sociopaths, people who like to rape, people who like to steal, taking someone's property, taking their dignity by raping them or some sort of sexual assault or murder or even just actual regular assault, beating the shit out of someone. These things are unacceptable in a society where people are just trying to get along. But these people do exist who want to do that. I think the majority of people, and even then they might want to do these actions, but in their mind, I don't even think that they think they're being bad. I don't think they're, maybe the sociopaths like Dahmer or Gacy,
right.
Maybe these guys reveled in doing evil and they were like, yes, Mr. Burns style.
Get the hounds.
Right, yes.
Oh no,
release the hounds. So maybe there are some that are like that. I guess I don't want to be dismissive to those types. They must exist. But I think the majority of people are out to just help themselves and their friends, their family, their loved ones, their community, but they do it in ways, of course, which can conflict with normal society things. So then they need to be dealt with. And there's going to be criminality, there's going to be criminals. People like to transgress. It's just kind of they get their thrills off it. So
right.
Is,
And not only that, but then you have the occasional person who, well, I guess I shouldn't say occasional because it definitely happens enough, but somebody who, whatever, they've gone 40 years without ever committing a crime, and one day they just snap. And it's situational.
Going postal.
They get to that level, that emotional level that I don't want to say forces them, but whatever.
They feel like their only reaction.
Yeah, and to be violent or and then there's criminals who are in situations desperate, who are stealing genuinely so they can eat.
Right, or feed their family.
But you got to have police. To me it goes without saying. And a utopia. it would be nice, but I just don't.
Like I said, question marks.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, unless everybody were like robot, and you would have to use some serious policing to get them to that level of like you're happy, and
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, yeah, that's not necessarily utopia. I mean, happiness doesn't mean utopia.
That's true. That's true. Touche.
Vice versa.
Touche.
Utopia just means whatever. I'm not taking that down, but. Yes, no, I absolutely agree. I agree with what you're saying, and that's why I feel like my position is hard to attack because I'm open to the idea, and I agree that they're necessary. I get. I
think. All right. Well, how about we'll do this then. The video that you posted a video of a black male who had a bag around his shoulder.
Yeah. Who
got pushed.
Yeah.
It was a pretty violent push.
Yeah.
By the look of it. I don't know what the story was.
Totally out of context, and that's the problem. We don't know what happened.
Right.
Why was he in the confrontation?
But what I'd like to comment on is because that would be considered excessive force, and I know that you said it kind of bothered you, and it did. I mean, visually it was.
It's hard to see.
It was like what the hell? Like, why is this? Why? But see that's like all this anti-police stuff, all these things that people see. Just like you said, it's out of context. You weren't there. Right. Now, granted, I saw the video. The guy's hands were up.
He was trying to communicate.
Right. However, what I also will say, not to bounce back into martial arts, but, he was standing with his arms out just like you would with your fists, except he had open palms, as if to say, I don't want any problems. Interestingly enough, that was actually how we were told to stand. If we thought we were about to be attacked, because it looks very non-threatening.
Well, that is also sort of a hold-on motion. It's sort of like, whoa, back up.
Right, absolutely.
I don't want any of what you're putting off.
But I could do just as much damage with like this as I can with my fists closed. We trained from this position because all of your attacks can be delivered the same way. Now, judging by the video, did the guy look like he was going to attack? No.
He looked like a metrosexual black man.
Right.
He was just like, I just want my latte!
The push was a little aggressive. However, you don't know in that split second what he's going to do. And do you think it might be a little, He
was also, again, outnumbered. There were multiple cops.
But that's why police have that advantage. I mean, it's not about, policing isn't about having a fair one-on-one match, let's touch gloves and ring the bell. We're talking about you're temporarily or permanently taking away these people's rights. There's no other job on the planet that has that much complexity, right?
Yeah. Sure,
and range of power. And like I said, of course, there are people who let it get to their head and they overstep. Of course, I will never ever deny that. There's way too much evidence. There's way too many stories. However,
but
maybe right, you have to put yourself in their shoes.
No, I try to do that.
So this cop is coming up, and all he sees is a guy from behind with his arms up.
Yeah, that's true, because he does seem to be completely disassociated from whatever is happening. He just comes out of left field.
And the cop has his arms down.
And just fucking...
Right. Why take any chances? The guy got pushed. Okay, maybe he scraped his knee. All right.
Well, no, they did pig pile on top of him.
Well, you don't know.
No, I know. I get that. And that's part of police protocol.
Yeah,
How about this? Do you think there would be any credibility into thinking that while understanding the street, and I guess in the way the street can react in a split second and go from maybe with you to against you, or not on your side to against you, or not on your side to with you. I mean, the mentality out there is completely kind of weird and very dynamic. And so their training definitely gets them mentally ready for that, or as ready as fucking possible. Some officers break under that pressure. They let the power get to their head. Some officers thrive in that,
Right, yeah.
And, so I'll try to stay on track here. So I have to wonder if I'm trying to word this right. If the way they're being trained and the way they're getting prepared to hit the street isn't coloring the way that they're obviously they have to be prepared, they have to know scenarios and things like that, but I mean, are they becoming too prepared or something like that? Because, I mean, you look at the militarization. Now, you look back in the day at a police officer. I mean, back in the 40s and 50s, there was your friendly neighborhood police officer on the street with his partner, whistling and twiddling, saying, like a little lost girl could go to him and I need my mommy. And he would help her find her fucking mommy. But they were also sort of marginalized. People didn't respect the police because they were, in a sense, known to be paid and I'm going to use this term very loosely, but thugs. And that's only because they were the muscle.
Right.
I mean, they enforced the law. And so while they weren't working for Capone and being actual thugs, they had a nicer uniform and they definitely got paid well enough so that they didn't have to resort to that shit. They became a cop instead and used their street smarts and their muscle to be able to make sure that no one was robbed or raped or murdered, and they really did try to stop the bad guy. But that was in the 40s and 50s. A lot has changed.
That's true.
And throughout that dynamic course of time, their roles have changed. And now we have numbers of police that vastly outnumber what they originally kind of their ranks were. Now we have way more boots on the street, or whatever. Way more technology. And their roles, their reach has changed because they are rewriting. I don't know I don't know how often they rewrite police protocols, and I'm sure in fact it's different for every department or every city.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it's broken down, but I don't know how often, if it's every year, every 6 months, every 2 years. I don't know how often they rewrite their protocols for operations, but it seems to be set up in a way now more than ever that allows them to get away with, for example, kicking down your door during dinner or movie time with your family, shooting your dog in the head because it poses a possible threat. They used to tell you to lock the dog away before they were telling you we're coming in, but if you have a dog, lock him away now. They would give you that warning. Now they they kick down your door. They claim they have a right to do so because of an anonymous tip, which, okay, so that's fine. An anonymous tip. Okay, you're coming in, you're searching for marijuana or drugs or perhaps dirty money or whatever. SWAT team, fully militarized with helmets and vests and maybe semi-automatics or whatever, flashlights in your face. Everyone get down. I mean, pure pandemonium. When you put an animal, by the way, in that sort of situation, any animal, they're going to react, and it's not necessarily going to be the way you're demanding it to. Reaction is very normal in that sense, but that's resisting instantly. That is resisting, and then they can use deadly force if they need to.
Right, and that is a horrible thing because I am an animal lover.
I know you love dogs,
and it is very unfortunate. What I will say to that is, okay, what did you do to get a police department to the point where they're
sending a SWAT team? Right. No,
you must have fucked up somewhere. Yeah,
your name is on a list somewhere.
I'm not saying that mistakes don't happen, but
sure.
But I really don't. I don't see the nice little family that are innocent and that were just having dinner and just watching TV.
Right.
There's obviously something, and again, mistakes can happen.
Wrong addresses have happened.
And then the argument against the dog, as horrible as it is, if you're in there to capture like a real criminal, and I use that term loosely,
right?
You don't have time to hope that the dog doesn't bite you.
Right. No, and in fact, the dog probably, depending on the type, would in fact,
right,
because you're on its land, its house, its property,
and that sudden burst,
and going after its master.
Right. Yeah. So absolutely. But the protocols are never going to be perfect, and it is unfortunate. And I know what you mean. It's a very Nazi-esque kind of feel, these people banging your door in and with the military gear. But I mean, when you have no idea whose house you're going into and who you're dealing with, and we all have things in a house that nobody knows about, whether it's lethal or not.
Yes.
But the point is that, I mean, home field advantage is a real thing.
No, absolutely.
Protect yourself as much as possible. I mean, and on all these things, all this technology happened, wearing the helmets, all right, let's add this weapon, let's add this. It all happened because of events.
As in a reaction. No, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
No, I know.
And to touch back upon what you talked about, the police of the 1940s and 50s, that black and white image that we all have of a police officer walking down the street. And it is an unfortunate thing because people had at that time a neighborhood police officer. I actually watched a documentary on it. It was actually about the technology of police, and they talked about how the unfortunate part of bringing in police cars was that now these police were becoming detached.
So I mean, like they would literally be from that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then they'd be given that
everybody knew the officer by name.
See, that makes so much more sense.
But then first they had motorcycles actually before cars.
Really, I didn't know that.
And
horses too, I guess.
Yeah, right. And then criminals started using cars. So then they said, okay, I guess we better use cars. And at that time, in my opinion, there were way more crooked cops. Because
I
mean, all these gangsters had them in their back pockets. You can't get away with that.
Still happens. There are plenty of cops and plenty of back pockets.
I guess, yeah.
I think, and I don't know if I couldn't venture to guess if the majority or if the percentage is more or less.
Right.
Because we have more cops now, so there's more
Yeah,
opportunities.
I definitely feel like it's less because back then their salary wasn't the same, the benefits weren't the same, and their technology wasn't the same. They were actually at a disadvantage.
Oh, very much.
But that's where the line separated, I think, between people being friendly with police. Now you didn't see them walking down the sidewalk anymore. Now they were stern-faced behind the protection of a vehicle.
Cruisers are up to date and sleek looking.
Right. And it is. But I have to say it doesn't bother me at all. If somebody is coming in, if I'm going to call upon somebody for an emergency situation, I want them to be emergency equipped.
No, absolutely.
In all ways possible. You know what I mean? And as far as the riots go, and I mean, you see all these crazy videos. If you're in the middle of Baltimore, and for the past 24 hours or 2 days, however long it's been, everybody's throwing rocks and tipping over cars and lighting fires. I mean, at that point, it's like, of course you're going to swing at people that you maybe shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be scared.
Yeah.
Because then at that point now you're outnumbered.
No,
the police usually aren't outnumbered. Now they're outnumbered.
Well, in all reality, in any given day or whatever time, police are literally outnumbered at all times.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, no matter what.
In fact, I went through a citizens police academy, and one of the police officers told me that you're supposed to have one officer for every 500 citizens in the city. Which this was Holbrook. But they didn't even have that.
Right. That's also right. But that's also operating on the idea, which I firmly believe, that the majority of those 500 people are good folks.
That's right,
and they're not going to fuck with shit.
That's true, and a lot of the calls
or victimless crimes, which they still sometimes.
That's true.
Sometimes they still crack down on those.
And a lot, I listen to my police scanner every day. A lot of the calls are nothing more than go check on a disturbance, and then it turns out to be nothing.
Right.
So, but this rioting and stuff, I mean, I get it. People they feel political about what happened, and they feel that something needs to be said. But if that's the way you're going to go about it,
no, absolutely.
And then these
your message is completely lost.
Right.
Anyone who thinks you're a bunch of animals who happens to be under that opinion, you're basically just giving them
absolutely.
the right.
And then all the gangs saying they're going to come together. I mean.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about hearing that the Bloods and Crips are coming together, not against the police? Did you watch the thing?
I did. Well, I didn't watch the video. I read it.
You should. The video, because that's really the message that they were delivering.
But now that's what they're saying. That's not what they were saying at first. At first they were saying, we're going to come together with the Bloods, Crips, and the Black Guerrillas. We're going to come together and hunt the police or something like that.
That was something like that? I mean.
That's what I read that on the Attleboro. The Attleboro police report, now which didn't make sense to me because why would Attleboro have to worry about it?
Unless we send news to Baltimore, but I doubt it.
From Attleboro.
Right?
But
I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel from another article I read about that. They were just basically like the Bloods and Crips at some point made some sort of announcement. That an announcement was made that they were going to be calling a truce the next however long this was going on. And they were doing so. I didn't read any of the tweets. If this was all through Twitter, I don't know. I don't follow the Bloods or the Crips on Twitter, but I guess it was it was maybe not expressed, but that they were there to protect property and help to keep the people safe.
But can it be assumed that if they were calling a truce, that means that there was a fight initially?
Well, the Bloods and Crips have had a blood feud for decades. I mean, the Bloods and Crips have always been the diametrically opposed.
No, I know, but I thought you said a truce as far as the police go.
No. They were calling a truce with each other to work together.
Oh.
They weren't calling a truce with the police. But later on, this is that night. If you watch that video, it's that night, like last night or something like that. And this one reporter decided to actually interview these guys. And there's a group of like 5 or 6 of them. I believe it says they're in some sort of church meeting room. And they're just sort of kind of getting together. And it's guys in red, guys in blue, and then the guerrilla faction. I didn't even know what they were called, BGH.
The Black Guerrillas or something like that. I had no idea.
Yeah. So, okay.
I saw there was a few posts about it, and one of my friends mentioned that they read it. They were like, oh, did you hear the Bloods and Crips are coming together? Now, again, was that really their intention? I don't know.
Right.
A lot of it, we're not there. So, unfortunately, if you're really going to be a true skeptic about these things, we don't really know.
Right.
But I mean, if you're representing yourself as a gangster, I mean,
Well, I know, and that's the thing, and that's what part of the thing I said was,
The post,
yeah, they've obviously been responsible and still are responsible for absolutely reprehensible behavior, stuff that's disgusting, shooting, murdering, turf wars.
And I do reckon, you there was a part in there where you said, they're people too, and absolutely, as you know, my father's been a criminal my entire life, and I'll never take that away from him. But as far as in a riot setting, if you're gonna walk around in the middle of a riot and you're gonna be repping your gang and most likely have a firearm, I mean, and then you're gonna get hit with a billy club and be like, "Oh my God, that was racist!" Like, come on, let's be real.
I don't think that they were necessarily claiming that if they're getting hit, that it's a racist action. I don't know, but
no, I'm just saying that if somebody tried to present that argument, because that's promoting their own agenda of saying that they only did that because so and so was black, or if you're gonna, the Bloods and Crips are infamous. I mean, everybody knows about them, And if you have a red shirt and a red bandana on, and you've got that kind of look to you that you're not fucking around.
Yeah. You're probably a Blood.
Right. So I mean, I don't know, man. It's like.
Well, so again, if you were to at some point sit down and watch the video, you'll see their tone. They're not fired up. They're actually, I mean, granted, they are speaking like Bloods and Crips, so it's like you got to cut through. Yeah, I'm sorry, folks, I'm pretty white, so sometimes I have to filter some of the words so I understand what they're saying. But for the most part, it's actually not that hard to understand. Right. They're making a very good point,
and that's good. That's good that they're taking the time to do that.
I agree.
But anybody who's a part of the riot, who's genuinely, I mean, if you're passing through in
well, I don't think they were involved with any of the actual riotous action. I believe they were in like people chains in front of businesses and things of that nature.
Oh, okay.
That's some of the, I believe there were a couple of pictures that they showed of them kind of standing, and it was literally like red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. So I mean, they were just like, right. So I mean, I don't know. And I guess there's no reports of them taking any direct action.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know that.
Cops did take action against them because they're used to seeing them and knowing that they're bad.
Right. And it's like, okay, what if you got normal citizens rioting, what are these guys going to do?
Yeah, no, absolutely, of course. So, and that's
but of course, there's no way to prove that somebody truly acted upon fear, and that's the problem with police brutality. Is like you have no true way of knowing.
I feared for my life.
Right.
That's all you have to say.
Yeah, you have no way of knowing if they genuinely experienced that terror. The problem with with violence and lethal force, whether it's from a police officer or a citizen, is that it can take less than a second, and you really don't have the time to sit there and ponder, if I do this, is it going to be a little too much? I think the normal person is going to save their own life.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rioting is just it's nonsense. It really it's.
Did you see the thing? I'm sure you saw the first post I made this morning about them throwing the cinder blocks or the bricks or whatever at the fire engine.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that does not make any sense. At no point firemen ever represented law.
But what did we learn in EMT school? That people in uniform are targeted.
No,
even it's something.
Even medics.
Yeah, it's something about and I totally agree. It's ridiculous.
It is.
But it's ridiculous to throw cinder block in general.
Well, true.
You know what I mean? But yeah, that was a little silly. But maybe who knows? Maybe they looked at it as you're stopping our, air quotes here, progress of burning the city down by putting out the fire. It's just the wrong way to go about it.
Totally.
And like the thing you read earlier about, Gandhi and Martin Luther King and those people, they definitely went about it in the right way, the nonviolent protest. Yep. And look at what that did. That literally changed America.
Once that message got to enough ears and changed enough minds and hearts, the hearts and minds of the people, once that was accomplished, it was really not that hard and not that long to do.
Right.
I mean, and obviously there were some growing pains, and I guess if you take the long view, the big picture view of it, maybe it's still a process that's continuing today. So it's done and over, but it got the ball rolling very well, I feel.
And it took over 200 years. But
right. No, but better late than never, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. So I mean, I guess the point to my whole thing here is that obviously we both agree the riot is silly. You shouldn't be doing that. But what people are doing is they're focusing in on people who are innocent and in the middle of the riot who happen to get hurt by police.
Right.
And fine. Okay, and that is unfortunate. But you're in the middle of a riot.
Right.
And these police have been in the middle of the riot for whatever, 2 days, 3 days now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd be
they're on rotating shifts.
Yeah.
They're fucking getting coffee and going right back.
Right. I mean, I'd be looking around everywhere like, holy shit. I mean, they're probably shitting their pants.
Mm-hmm. They're wired. They're exhausted. They're
you know,
on edge.
so I mean,
I get it.
If those things happen, you know, that isn't what people should be focusing on. In my opinion, you should be focusing on that. Why are people still rioting? It's 2000. Like, why are these things still happening?
All right. Here's the thing. You know, rioting. No, okay. So en masse, people in large groups meeting outside for a specific cause is not what we're talking about. We're talking about rioting.
Right.
Rioting, which is destruction and looting and arson and shootings. And again, we were listening to the scanner today, and the cops were doing normal cop stuff. There were no reports on radio, granted, whatever this means, it means whatever, but there were no reports like, make sure you go beat some Negroes.
Right.
10-4. You know, there was none of that. These people are just fucking people.
Right.
And they get paid to do this job. And 9 days out of 10, this job is mundane and boring, and no one gets hurt. And, you know, but there are just like there are the sociopaths who need to be taken care of and punished or whatever or rehabilitated, whatever. You know, there are also the cops who are just as sociologically detached or in a sense maybe a psychopath, and they're going to use their preconceived notions of the world to use their power and then do what they will. So I mean, there's definitely those exist. There are definitely people like that exist, but I believe that those numbers are in the minority in both cases. I think the majority of everybody is a wholesome, good individual, even though we all have our own personal rap sheet.
Yeah, okay? At the very least, that they're modest and they're, you know, just kind of average. I don't like to use that word, but
right.
But I totally agree.
Even though we don't all physically, literally have a police rap sheet, we all have our own internal rap sheet, things that we've done that we're not proud of, things that only we will ever know about. So none of us are saints here, you know. None of us are perfect, and you know, I mean, I'm not here to quote the Bible, but you know, the saying is, "He who's without sin be the one to throw the first stone." Well, I mean, if we want to look at that, you know, no one should be throwing any fucking stones right now,
right,
because none of us are doing great,
right?
Know? But there are people who are going to pick up rocks and throw them anyway,
right? Yeah.
To get colorful. Where the hell was that? I don't know.
Yeah, man. You know, I totally agree, and I guess, you know, I just get, you know, as you know, I'm an advocate for police, and I actually want to be a police officer, which
is why we're having this.
Right, which, you know, may or may not make it a biased view, but it seems to me that you feel like that the protocols are the problem, and I think that I don't think it's written anywhere that you should be able to beat somebody up if they're not using lethal force. You know what I mean?
Right. No. To me, I don't think the protocols are written that way.
Okay.
But I feel like the protocols are written in such a way that rules of engagement are slightly different now. So it's, you know, 6 cops on one. The 6 cops see each other and they think, well, this is okay.
Right.
You know, when in reality they should see 6 cops. Okay, well, let's 2 of us engage. 4 of you step back and just kind of watch the situation.
But don't you think that
which obviously may not be safe because they're out of distance.
And not only that, but I mean, don't you think if you really want to not be beat up, isn't it easy enough to just give up? Whether there's 6 or 1?
Yeah, no, of course he should have. I mean, but then there are other situations where people have tried to surrender. And
that's true, and I have seen some of those videos. So that's absolutely true. And
but these are individual police doing their own fucking thing. They're working outside. I've always said these are people are overstepping.
Absolutely, that's always my argument, is that people want to target the police as a whole.
Right.
I mean, all it takes. What's the saying?
One bad apple ruins the whole
bunch.
Okay. Which I think is a dumb statement because there are plenty of situations where one bad apple should just be dealt with.
That's just, you know what,
should just be picked out and said, here's the rest of the bunch, it's still tasty.
That's true.
Let's make some pie.
That's very true.
It's an easy saying to say, but it's a lazy mindset.
Yeah,
I really feel that's true.
What was I going to say? But it is true, though, because all it takes is one video like that for somebody to be like, oh, yeah, fuck the police.
Right.
You know what I mean? They don't see, you know, I'm sure you saw the post, not that you liked it, but the one that I put where I don't even remember what I said, but it was kind of like a short video of them pulling somebody out of a car that was on fire. Did you see that one?
Oh,
I posted it on my wall, and
I think I did.
And I did like a little paragraph or two about, you know, how I was making it a point to show a video of police just doing their job.
Right.
You know
Why
what
do you
I mean?
think I wouldn't like that? I actually did see that video, and I think that's amazing. I think that's great. But We don't see enough.
No, I mean.
Oh, you mean like?
Yeah,
Oh,
like,
no,
yeah,
I
yeah.
see. Okay. In quotes,
Yeah.
Facebook like.
The click like, how dare you.
I didn't click it.
No.
But I did enjoy that. I mean, I want to see that.
Right, and that's good.
There
and
are
that's
plenty
good.
of examples, but they don't.
And that's
really,
good to know because sometimes people in yourself, sometimes it almost seems like you want.
That is literally the narrative, though. When I talk about the narrative of the story they're trying to tell us, that is what is declared, which is why you think that might be the way I think.
Right,
because
right.
I sit on the side that I sit on. They want us to tell the story where the cops are all bad and they're psycho and they're overstepping
Right.
and they're all gonna beat us to shit and take our property and things like that. And they also want us to think that all gangsters are terrible individuals. They want us to think that all black men are untrustworthy and black women are unwed mothers on welfare or people of color. We're focusing on black tonight, but whatever minority you want to say, I mean, because everyone's got their argument and that they're valid. Sorry.
No, it wasn't your fault. I was going to touch upon some. Oh, you also did a post about the war on drugs,
yes.
which
that was
And as you know, that is one thing we do agree on.
Yes.
And even though I'm somebody who had two drug addict parents, I still don't think it should be illegal. I do believe that the war on drugs is a waste of time. They should be treated as somebody with an illness. I do agree, not as a criminal, because my father has been arrested multiple times for, I don't know the specifics of what drugs he was addicted to, but coke, it was in that
something
range.
harder.
Yeah.
Right.
And, he got out and within a week he was right back to it. Yeah. Because it is a disease and I totally agree with that. And I don't agree with the war on drugs. However, it's still the police doing their job.
No, absolutely.
Like, if I ever become a police officer, will I really want to arrest somebody for having a little bit of coke in their pocket? No, but it's against the law.
It is, yeah.
And those types of videos, I think, also make it easier to hate police when you, like, oh, come on, man, all the guy had on him was a little bit of weed or, now it's becoming decriminalized.
So far.
But you still see cops episodes like in Texas and stuff.
Oh, yeah, no,
they find a little bit of weed and they're right to jail.
Oh, yeah.
Which I do think is ridiculous, but this
also the 3 strikes. If that happens 3 times, the 3rd time, you're going to prison. It's not just jail.
Yeah.
You're actually going to prison.
Right,
how much is your father, and I don't want to make it too personal, but how much is just your father cost the taxpayer? Based on his behavior, and that's his own personal struggle.
Well, he brought it to violence. I see.
Okay.
The bank robbery and stuff, which is common knowledge. I don't care who does it.
That's definitely taking it up a notch.
Yeah.
From just doing your own drugs and
it is a result of he was trying to steal money. He was desperate. Nobody would help him, so he could get that high. So I do recognize one thing. I do sort of kind of agree with the war on drugs, as it's called, is that generally these people who are doing the heavy stuff are doing other illegal things.
Right.
It usually does. These are the people who, and my neighbor, one of my best friends, stealing from their own parents, stealing from their friends. These are things that he did. Yep. He stole his mother's jewelry. His grandmother gave him a nice necklace. What did he do? He went and sold it. Not that that's stealing. But the point I'm making is that these drug addictions, which are very much an illness, unfortunately, most of the time produce a criminal style behavior where they're lying, they're stealing, or even hurting people if
whatever
they get to that
have
point.
To do to get the next fix.
And they're getting involved with that, the people in low places.
The criminal underground.
Right, you know what I mean? That's where the line is for me. I mean, overall, I don't think drugs should be illegal. I don't think you should ever be told that you can't put something in your own body, especially in your own home.
Yeah, on your own property.
But the people who have heroin in their pocket, they're probably driving a stolen car. They probably stole something that they have on their persons. Not saying that it's a guaranteed exact science.
No, right, for sure.
And
I guess the probability certainly does go up.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because that's part of the disease. That's part of the price that you pay is that your morals, everything go out the window. I watched it firsthand when my mother, she didn't care. She didn't wake up with me in the morning to go to school. She didn't.
She ended up shipping you off for a few years, right? So.
Well, no, my grandparents actually came and got me.
Okay.
Yeah, but she didn't care. Yeah.
But she's a lucky story because she got through all that.
She is, yeah. I guess I should say something good about her.
Oh, yeah.
In case anybody else hears. Yeah. She's been sober for almost 10 years now, and now she.
It's possible if you treat it like a health issue.
And that's what she
didn't treat the individual.
Absolutely. She didn't go to rehab or anything.
Really?
They sent her to the middle. They sent her. Listen to me. That's not even true. I don't know why I said they sent her. She went to live with her parents, my grandparents in Florida, but they live in the middle of a swamp and like a tiny little neighborhood with dirt roads, like fucking 45 minutes away from like even like the little tiny town. Like you have to drive by cow fields. So she literally couldn't get drugs.
She detoxed herself by removing herself.
Yeah, she didn't go to rehab or anything, and she's been sober for 10 years. She works out every single day. She doesn't even drink cigarettes, nothing.
Right.
You know, my father, unfortunately, not so lucky. Now he's gotten to the point.
Because he was treated like a criminal, and he was put through the system.
That's true.
And then put through the system, and then put through the system.
That's true, yeah. And now he's not comfortable in open society.
Right. Is he still behind?
Yep, yes. He's getting out next year. Yeah, which is 10 years. It's a long time. He told me like interesting things. Like he's like, you forget how to cross the road, like how to time a car coming. You lose that skill. And we were like in CVS, and he was picking up razors, and he like didn't know how to ask the woman where the razors were. And he was like, "Listen, I've been away for a while. I just need to shave." And I was like, "Why didn't you just say where are the razors?"
Right.
And he like kind of looked at me funny, and you know. It's a different world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I mean, no, I guess for me personally, even if I ever get pulled over, which I never have. Knock on wood.
Thanks for overloading the mic.
Whoops. I'd be shit. That'd be enough for me. I'd be shit because for me personally, the idea of getting in trouble is very scary, which is the whole purpose of the police. You see a cop driving by and you're like,
a deterrent.
Right. And being proactive, you know, maybe I'm not going to do that now.
Right.
But for some people, and he didn't know how to function. He was telling me how loud
society.
Yeah.
I believe it.
He just all these little, and he's like, I woke up like with nightmares, and I'm like, and at this time when he got out, he had just finished a 4-year sentence. He was out for about 5 months and then back in.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him since. Well, I did visit him once. But it's a different world. And you're right. And like now they see his face now. They're like, yep, 10 years. Bye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because now they're just sick of it. So I do agree. The war, I do think that people should, but it's like you can't force them to get medical help. Like that's the problem.
Well, no. I mean, the thing that's why it should be a sovereign choice though. So it's like it's their body, it's their consciousness. If they want to alter that, I mean, obviously, and I might be kind of rehashing something that someone may have heard from another podcast, but basically, we should have, society is not against altering one's consciousness, be it through caffeine or, nicotine or marijuana or drinking beer, alcohol, wine, any kind of hard liquor. I mean, society is totally okay with changing the filter from which your brain can detect the world. And that's really all a substance does. A drug, all it does is change the way your brain filters information. Or another way I put it to you one time was your brain works on a very normal whatever steady frequency when you're sober. It's at a very specific frequency. And when you take a substance, you basically take a tuning fork, you smack it on the side of the table, and you just shove it in your brain, and it totally changes the frequency.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
You're taking in the information, which is the same idea. A person, an adult who is not hurting anybody, not infringing on anyone else's life or property or their freedom to do what they want, they should be able to alter their consciousness in any way that they deem fit for them. Right. Now, for some people, that might mean doing a whole bunch of heroin. And, that's just their path. And it's like, maybe it sounds cold or detached, but in a way, I'm giving them the freedom to be the human that they are. Maybe not the one that they want to be, maybe not the one that they were when they were younger, but the one that they are. And I think that's important because, I mean, we all have perspectives and we all have ideas of what we would like for our friends and family. And then each individual has their own idea of what they would like for themselves, you know what I mean? And then society sort of has a blanket idea for, okay, well, you're this, that, other thing. This is sort of, but you have to be allowed to live your life, I feel, in a way that, in a free sort of way.
I do. I agree with you, definitely. And I guess the most obvious argument, which I think is used a lot, the people who are for the war on drugs, claim that no, it's because they're bad for you and they're going to kill you. And of course, heroin is like way worse than a lot of things and meth and stuff. But it goes without saying, cigarettes and alcohol.
Right.
They've been not only are they huge money makers, but they're socially acceptable.
Exactly.
And that's However, do I want to see like people doing heroin while at the bar?
No, hell no. Of course
You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Well, and most heroin addicts don't want to be in public anyway.
That's true.
That's why crack dens exist. It's quiet. They congregate to themselves. I mean, whatever.
Yeah,
it's easy to, but that's their life.
That's true. No, you're right.
And you can only hope that if you were to allow them, I mean, here's the thing: if you just allow them on their train of existence, they're either going to overdose and kill themselves, and that is very sad. It's unfortunate, but that is also one member of society that obviously wasn't really contributing, and they decided to take their path to that level.
Right.
It's the same someone who overeats, and everyone, even if they get an intervention on television, it's like, listen, Bill, you're 560 pounds, you really should stop putting away those piezones. And but eventually he dies because he either ruptured his stomach one night, or he has diabetes or some exacerbating medical illness because of his overweightness. And it's like, well, that's the same addiction. It's the same chemical reaction.
It's true.
The same. So, if that's a health issue, then so is someone, But again,
and that's the part that makes me against it. That the war on drugs is it's really just all about money. It's because they can't tax it. You know what I mean?
And how much of the drugs in our country, starting from the beginning of the war on drugs, which is late 70s, early 80s, it kind of with Reagan, I think it was, that it started.
Yeah, I think so.
So if that's the case, then